She can't give children, they said, until a lonesome cowboy with 5 kids chose her. She learned very early that in a small town, news traveled faster than kindness. People did not ask questions gently. They did not wait to know the whole story. They heard one thing, repeated it, and slowly turned it into her identity. Long before she was known for her patience, her quiet strength, or her warm smile, she became known for something she could not control. She could not have children. The words were never said to her face at first. They floated around her like dust in sunlight, always present, impossible to avoid.
Neighbors lowered their voices when she passed.
Older women gave her looks filled with pity instead of warmth. Men who once showed interest suddenly found reasons to disappear. Over time, she stopped wondering why conversations ended early. Doc Silo, the doctor, had told her the truth years ago, sitting across from her with a calm voice and careful words. A medical condition, something she was born with, something no treatment could fix. He spoke about options, about acceptance, about how life could still be full. She nodded and listened, but inside something quiet broke, not loudly, not all at once, just enough to change the shape of her future. At first she believed love would still find her. She believed that if someone truly cared, it would not matter. She dated, she tried, and every time the moment came, to be honest, the air changed. Some men pretended it was fine, then slowly pulled away. Others were more direct. They wanted a family of their own. A few said it kindly. A few did not. Each goodbye left a small mark, until she stopped opening herself so easily. Her family meant well, but even they reminded her, without realizing it, of what she lacked. Her mother spoke often about grandchildren. Her relatives asked careful questions that hurt anyway. At weddings and celebrations, she smiled while watching children run past her, wondering what it would feel like to be called Mama. At night, alone in her small house, the silence answered her instead. Eventually, she adjusted her dreams. She told herself some people were meant to live quietly. She filled her days with work, routine, and small comforts. She became the woman people relied on but never imagined building a future with. The woman who helped others raise children but went home to an empty kitchen. She learned how to accept loneliness without letting it show. Across town, life was loud in a very different way. The cowboy woke before the sun every morning, not because he wanted to, but because 5 children demanded it. The ranch did not pause for grief, and neither did hunger, school schedules, or broken boots. His wife had been gone for 3 years, but some days it still felt like yesterday. Other days it felt like a lifetime ago. He had not planned to raise 5 children alone. No one does. The accident took more than just his partner. It took the balance of his home, the softness of his evenings, and the sense that he knew what he was doing. Since then, he lived in a constant state of catching up. Laundry piled faster than he could fold it. Meals were simple and rushed. Emotions were often ignored because there was no time to stop. His children missed their mother in different ways. The oldest tried to act strong, carrying responsibility that was too heavy. The middle ones argued, testing boundaries, expressing grief through noise and defiance. The youngest barely remembered her mother's face, but cried for her in dreams anyway. He loved them fiercely, but love did not make things easy. The town watched him closely. Some admired him. Some judged him. Many assumed he would remarry quickly, that any woman would need to step in and fix the chaos. But most women looked at his life and saw too much work, too much baggage, too many children that were not theirs. He noticed the looks change whenever people counted them. 1 child was understandable. 2 was manageable. 5 made people step back, so he stopped expecting anything. He focused on survival, on keeping the ranch alive, on making sure his children were fed and safe. Romance felt like a luxury he could not afford. A trust felt risky. Letting someone close meant risking more loss. Meanwhile, she continued living her quiet life, unaware that her path was slowly moving toward his. She met his children before she met him properly. They were loud, dusty, and everywhere, filling the space with energy she was not used to. She noticed the tiredness in their eyes beneath the noise. She noticed how they clung to each other in unfamiliar places. She did not know their story yet, but she felt it. When she finally spoke to him, it was simple, polite. Nothing dramatic. He seemed guarded, his words careful, his attention split between her and the children pulling at his sleeves. She did not mind. She was used to being in the background. What surprised her was not the chaos. It was the way her chest felt when one of the children smiled at her without fear. It was the way she instinctively knelt to their level, spoke gently, listened. She told herself it meant nothing. She had learned not to let hope grow too fast. The town noticed anyway. They always did. They said she should not get attached. They reminded each other, quietly and sometimes loudly, of her condition. They assumed she was wasting her time. They assumed he would never choose someone like her. After all, what man with 5 children would choose a woman who could not give him more? She heard the whispers, even when no one said them directly. She pretended not to. She had practice. Years of it. But this time, the words felt heavier, because for the first time in a long while, her heart had reacted before her mind could stop it. She told herself she was only being kind. That kindness did not mean commitment. That helping did not mean belonging. She reminded herself of every lesson she had learned about disappointment. Still, something inside her shifted, quietly, the way it always did before change. She did not know it yet, but this was the moment her label would begin to lose its power. Not because people stopped judging her, but because her life was about to grow louder than their voices. And somewhere between a tired cowboy and 5 motherless children, the future she had buried began to breathe again. After that first meeting, life did not suddenly change. There was no dramatic moment, no clear sign that anything important had begun. Things moved slowly, quietly, the way real life usually does. But small moments started adding weight to her days, moments she did not know how to explain or ignore. She began seeing the cowboy and his children more often. Sometimes it was by chance, sometimes because of work or shared responsibilities in the community. Each time the children arrived like a storm, dusty shoes, loud voices, endless questions. At first she stood back, unsure of her place. She did not want to interfere. She did not want to cross lines that did not belong to her. But children do not wait for permission. One of them tugged at her hand while speaking. Another asked her to watch something they were proud of. The youngest hid behind her leg when she felt shy. None of it felt planned. None of it felt forced. It simply happened, as naturally as breathing. She surprised herself by how comfortable she felt. There was no fear in her movements, no hesitation in her voice. She spoke to them calmly, listened carefully, treated their thoughts as important. She noticed the way they looked at her, curious but relaxed, as if they sensed something safe in her presence. The cowboy watched all of this quietly. He did not comment. He did not interrupt. He stayed alert, always ready to step in, but something about her put him at ease. She was not trying to impress him. She was not trying to take control. She simply existed alongside the children, steady and patient. That steadiness caught his attention more than beauty ever could. Still, he kept his distance. Experience had taught him to be careful. He had seen people come and go from his children's lives. Promises made lightly. Attachments formed too fast. He refused to let anyone get close unless he was sure they could handle the weight of his world. And his world was heavy. Raising 5 children alone left little room for emotion. His days were filled with responsibility, his nights with exhaustion. Some evenings, after everyone was asleep, he sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing, wondering if he was doing enough, wondering if he was failing them in ways he could not fix. When she offered help, it was never dramatic. She did not announce it or make it feel like charity. She showed up when needed. She stayed late when things ran long. She noticed small details, who needed encouragement, who needed space, who needed to be reminded they were seen. She never spoke about herself much. She asked about the children instead, about their routines, their likes, their fears. The cowboy answered carefully, giving only what was necessary. Trust did not come easily to him anymore. The town, however, had no patience for slow understanding. People began to talk more openly now. They questioned her intentions. They questioned his judgment. Some said she was getting too close. Others said he was setting himself up for disappointment. And always, the same sentence followed. She can't give him children. As if the 5 he already had did not exist. She heard the words in passing, in half-finished sentences and looks that lingered too long. Each time it stung in a familiar way. She reminded herself she had lived with this label for years. She should be used to it by now. But this time felt different, because this time it was not just about her. She worried about the children, about what it would mean if she became part of their routine and then disappeared. She worried she might grow attached, that she might start to feel like she belonged somewhere she was never meant to stay. At night, she lay awake replaying small moments. A laugh, a question, a hand slipping into hers without thought. She told herself she was imagining things. That kindness did not mean connection. That comfort did not mean future. Meanwhile, The cowboy felt his own unease growing. He noticed how his children talked about her when she was not around, how they asked when they would see her again. How the house felt slightly calmer after she had been there. He told himself it was temporary. Adapted quickly, he reminded himself. They always did. But something about this felt deeper. He had not planned to let anyone into his life. Certainly not someone the town already doubted. He knew what people said about her. He knew her story, at least the version people liked to repeat. At first it had made him cautious, not because he saw her as lacking, but because he understood how cruel expectations could be. He did not want to hurt her. He also did not want to hurt his children, so he kept things polite, friendly, distant. Then one afternoon changed the balance. One of the children became overwhelmed during a busy moment. Too much noise. Too many people. Too many emotions held in for too long. The child pulled away, tears close to the surface, breathing uneven. The cowboy was busy handling another situation, stretched thin like always. Without thinking, she knelt beside the child. She did not scold. She did not rush. She spoke softly, grounding them, reminding them to breathe. She stayed there until the shaking stopped, until the fear passed. It took time. She gave it freely. When the cowboy finally looked over, what he saw stopped him cold. Safe. Leaning toward her in trust. That moment lingered in his mind long after the day ended. For the first time, he wondered what his life might look like if someone like her stayed. That thought scared him more than loneliness ever had. She, on the other hand, felt the shift immediately. Not in words, but in energy. The way he looked at her changed, less guarded, more thoughtful. As if he was seeing something new, something he had not allowed himself to consider before. Still, neither of them spoke about it. They both carried too much caution. Too many reasons to stay silent. The town continued to watch, waiting for failure, waiting for proof that they were right. She continued to walk carefully, afraid of stepping too far into a place she might be pushed out of. He continued to balance on the edge between need and fear. And the children, unaware of any of it, continued to choose her in small, honest ways. Each day pulled her closer, even as her mind warned her to stay back. Each day challenged the stories people had written about her. She did not know where this path led. She only knew that for the first time in a long while she was not walking alone. As days turned into weeks, her presence slowly became part of the children's routine. It happened so gently that no one noticed it at first, not even her. She was there when shoes went missing, when tempers flared, when quiet moments felt too heavy for small hearts to carry alone. She did not try to replace anyone. She did not make promises. She simply stayed consistent, and that consistency began to matter more than words. The children started looking for her the moment they arrived somewhere. If she was late, they asked about her. If she smiled at them from across a room, they relaxed. They spoke to her about things they never said out loud before. School worries, bad dreams, moments when they missed their mother so much it hurt, and places they did not know how to name. She listened without fixing everything. Sometimes she offered advice. Sometimes she just nodded and let silence do its work. Area that not every problem needed an answer. Some only needed to be heard. Inside her, something unfamiliar grew. She had spent years convincing herself that she was fine being alone, but she did not need more than what she already had. But now, she caught herself thinking about the children when she was away, wondering if they had eaten well, hoping their days had been easy. The care felt natural, but it scared her. She worried she was crossing invisible lines. Late at night, she questioned herself. Was she becoming too attached? Was she fooling herself into believing she belonged in a life that was never meant for her? She reminded herself of how things usually ended. She reminded herself of the whispers, the looks, the unspoken rules of the town. Still, her heart did not listen. The cowboy noticed everything, even when he pretended not to. He saw how his children changed around her, how the house felt less tense after she had been there, how laughter came easier, how arguments ended sooner. He saw how she never demanded attention, never tried to take control. She fit into the chaos without trying to reshape it. That unsettled him. Part of him felt relief. Another part felt fear. Letting someone matter meant giving them power to leave. He had already lost enough. He did not know if he could survive another goodbye, especially when his children would feel. People around him had opinions, and they shared them freely. Friends warned him not to get involved. Some said she would eventually want more than he could give. Others said she was not the right choice for a man with so many children. A few were blunt enough to remind him of her problem, as if her worth could be measured by something she could not change. He never argued. He simply listened and went home with the words sitting heavy on his chest. One evening after a long day, One of the children fell ill. Nothing serious, but enough to bring fear and restlessness into the house. The cowboy tried to manage everything on his own, but exhaustion made his patience thin. The children sensed it. Tension spread quickly. Without thinking, he called her. The moment she arrived, the house shifted. She moved calmly, checking on the child, soothing the others, helping without asking for direction. She stayed through the night, sitting nearby, humming softly, offering comfort with her presence alone. When morning came, and the child was resting peacefully, the cowboy realized something that made his chest tighten. He had not felt alone all night. That realization followed him for days. She, however, struggled with guilt. She worried that she was becoming something she had promised herself she would never try to be. She worried that one day she would be asked to step back, and it would hurt more than she could bear. The town's judgment grew louder as her connection to the family became more visible. People watched closely now. Some shook their heads. Some spoke openly. Others smiled politely while waiting for the story to end the way they expected. She overheard a conversation one afternoon that cut deeper than most. Someone said the children would eventually need a real mother. Someone else said she was only filling time until the cowboy found someone better. Someone laughed and said it was obvious this could never last. She walked away before they noticed her tears. That night, she seriously considered pulling back. She told herself she was protecting everyone. She told herself it was the right thing to do. But when she imagined the children's faces, the idea felt unbearable. The turning point came quietly, without drama. One of the children, usually strong and closed off, finally broke down after a rough day. Tears came suddenly, words spilling out about missing their mother, about feeling angry, about feeling forgotten. The cowboy froze, unsure how to handle the depth of emotion. He loved his children, but he was still learning how to hold their pain. She stepped forward. She wrapped the child in a gentle embrace, letting them cry without rushing them to stop. She spoke softly, not dismissing the feelings, not trying to replace what was lost, just acknowledging the hurt. "It's okay to miss her," she said. "It's okay to feel this way." The child clung to her, crying freely for the first time in a long while. The cowboy watched, something breaking open inside him. In that moment, he understood what people around him had missed. Motherhood was not only about giving birth, it was about showing up when things were hardest. It was about staying when it would be easier to walk away. Later that night, after the children were asleep, he finally spoke honestly. He told her he was afraid of relying on her, afraid of letting his children love her, afraid of losing her if things went wrong. His voice was quiet, heavy with years of holding everything together alone. She listened, just like she always did. Then she admitted her own fear. She told him how long she had been told she was not enough, how she had built walls to protect herself from hope, how caring for his children had awakened something she thought she had buried forever. They did not make promises. They did not rush to define anything, but something shifted between them that night. It was no longer just kindness. It was choice. The next morning, life continued as usual. Breakfast was loud. Shoes were lost. Arguments happened. But underneath it all was a new understanding, a quiet agreement that they were stepping into something uncertain together. The town still talked. The judgment did not disappear. But inside that house, something stronger was forming. She stopped seeing herself as a temporary presence. He stopped seeing her as a risk to avoid. The children, in their own simple way, had already decided. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the future she was told she could never have was already unfolding in front of her. As their bond grew stronger inside the house, the world outside seemed to push back harder. It was as if the town sensed something changing and felt the need to remind everyone of the rules it had already written. Smiles became tight. Greetings felt forced. Conversation stopped when she entered her room. She noticed it all, even when she pretended not to. The children noticed too. They were old enough to understand tone, to read faces, to feel when something was wrong. They asked questions she did not always know how to answer. Why did people look at her that way? Why did some parents stop letting their kids come over? Why did grown-ups whisper? She tried to protect them from the truth, but pieces of it slipped through anyway. One afternoon, the oldest child came home quiet and distant. After some gentle questions, the words finally came out. Someone at school had said something cruel, something about her not being their real family, something about how she would never truly belong. The words landed hard. She kept her voice calm, but inside, old wounds reopened. She told the child that people sometimes speak from ignorance. That love was not measured by biology. That family was built through care, not labels. The child nodded, but the hurt did not disappear. That night, after the children were asleep, she sat alone longer than usual. Doubt crept back in, louder than before. She wondered if staying was selfish, if she was inviting pain into the lives of children who had already lost too much. She wondered if the town was right, if she was only borrowing a place she would never truly own. The cowboy felt the shift immediately. He saw it in her quietness, in the way she hesitated before stepping into familiar routines. He asked what was wrong, but she brushed it off at first. She did not want to burden him. He already carried enough distance, had a way of growing if left unspoken. A few days later, his family invited him to a gathering. He almost did not go. Family events had become complicated since his wife's passing, but the children wanted to attend, and he agreed. He also invited her, unsure of how she would be received, but unwilling to leave her behind. The tension was clear from the moment they arrived. Some relatives were polite but cold, others were openly uncomfortable. Questions were asked that were not really questions at all. Comments were made with smiles that did not reach the eyes. She felt every one of them. Then someone said it out loud. Not loudly, not angrily, just casually, as if stating a simple fact. She seems nice, but the kids really need a proper mother figure. Someone who can fully give him a family. The room went quiet.
She froze. Years of similar comments rushed back at once.
Her chest tightened, her hands trembled slightly. She waited, half expecting the cowboy to stay silent, the way people often did when things became uncomfortable. But he didn't. He stood up, calm but firm. He spoke without raising his voice, but every word carried weight. He said the children already had a family. He said they were not broken or lacking. He said that the woman standing beside him had given his children more stability and care than anyone else had in years. He said clearly and without hesitation that he chose her. Not because of what she could or could not give, biologically, but because of who she was. The room shifted. Some people looked away. Some looked surprised. Some looked ashamed. No one argued. She felt tears rise, not from sadness this time, but from something warmer, something steadier. Later that night, as they drove home, the children were unusually quiet. Finally, one of them spoke. They said they were glad he said what he did. Another said they were proud. The youngest simply reached for her hand and held it. That simple gesture meant more than any speech. Still, the pressure did not disappear overnight. Rumors spread faster now. Some people accused her of trying to replace someone she never could. Others claimed the relationship was unfair to the children. A few said it would all end badly, that it always did. She tried to stay strong, but there were moments when the weight became too much. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, she told him she was thinking of stepping back. She said she loved the children too much to be the reason they were hurt. She said she was tired of fighting a battle she never chose. The fear in her voice stopped him cold. He told her what he had never said out loud before. He told her how lost he had felt after his wife passed, how alone he had been, even surrounded by his children. How her presence had brought calm into chaos, how she had helped him breathe again. He told her that walking away would hurt them more than staying ever could. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then one of the children who had overheard from the hallway stepped into the room. One by one, the others followed. They stood there, unsure but brave. The oldest spoke first. They said they did not care what anyone else thought. They said she made them feel safe. Another said the house felt like home when she was there. The youngest hugged her leg tightly, saying nothing at all. She broke down then, tears finally falling freely. Not because of pain, but because the choice had been made for her in the most honest way possible. From that day on, something changed inside her. The doubt did not vanish completely, but it no longer controlled her. She stopped shrinking herself to fit into other people's expectations. She stopped apologizing for a place she had earned through love. The cowboy became more open too. He stopped hiding his life from the town. He showed up with her beside him, unafraid of whispers. He corrected people when they spoke carelessly. He protected what they were building with quiet strength. The children grew more confident. They stopped asking if she would leave. They stopped flinching at careless words. They knew in their hearts who she was to them. The town did not change all at once. Some never changed at all. But it no longer mattered the way it once did, because inside that home, judgment had no power. Love had already won the hardest fight. And though challenges still waited ahead, she finally understood something important. She had not taken someone else's place. Time did what it always does. It kept moving forward, whether people were ready or not. Seasons changed on the ranch, and with each one, the family grew more settled into a life that once felt impossible. What had started as uncertainty slowly became routine, and routine turned into belonging. She no longer questioned every step she took inside that house. She no longer felt like a guest waiting to be asked to leave. Mornings became shared chaos, breakfasts half-burned, shoes misplaced, voices overlapping. Evenings were calmer, filled with tired laughter, homework spread across the table, and quiet moments that did not need explaining. The children changed in ways that were small but powerful. The oldest no longer carried the weight of responsibility alone. They learned it was okay to lean on someone else. The middle ones argued less and laughed more, their anger slowly softening into trust. The youngest stopped crying in her sleep as often, her nightmares fading as her sense of safety grew stronger. They began calling her for things without thinking. Not out of habit, but out of instinct. Question about school. Scraped knee. A fear that needed comfort. She answered each one with the same patience, the same care, never asking for anything in return. The cowboy watched it all with quiet gratitude. He still had hard days. There were moments when grief returned without warning, when memories of his late wife caught him off guard. But now, he did not carry those moments alone. She never tried to erase the past. She honored it. She spoke of the children's mother with respect, reminding them that love does not disappear just because life changes. That mattered more than anyone realized. The town, slowly and almost unwillingly, began to shift. People saw the children thriving. They saw the ranch running smoothly again. They noticed the calm that followed the family wherever they went. Whispers softened. Judgments grew quieter. Some people apologized without words, offering small gestures of kindness instead. Others never changed, but she no longer needed their approval. She had learned that peace did not come from being accepted by everyone. It came from knowing who you were and where you belonged. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the land in warm colors, the family gathered outside. The children played nearby, their laughter carrying through the air. The cowboy stood beside her, watching them with a soft expression. He thanked her. Not for what she had done, but for who she was, she answered honestly. She told him that she had once believed her life would always be quiet and empty, that she had mourned a future she thought was lost. But now, standing there, surrounded by love she never expected, she realized something important. She had not been denied motherhood. She had been guided to it. The word felt right now, not because anyone had given it to her, but because she had earned it through presence, sacrifice, and choice. She understood that family was not something given by nature alone. It was built, day by day, through commitment. The children ran over then, interrupting the moment in the way only children can. One asked for help. Another asked a question. The youngest simply wrapped her arms around her legs and smiled. That smile was all the proof she needed. Years passed. The children grew older. Challenges came and went. There were arguments, growing pains, mistakes, and lessons learned the hard way. She was there through all of it. Not perfect, not pretending to be, just steady. When people spoke of her now, they did not mention what she could not do. They spoke of the woman who raised 5 children with patience and love, the woman who chose a hard life and made it gentle, the woman who proved that labels fade when faced with truth. One day, standing in a crowded place filled with familiar faces, someone asked her if she ever regretted the life she did not have. She smiled softly before answering. No, because the life she had found was fuller than anything she had imagined. The cowboy looked at her then, pride clear in his eyes. The children stood around her, grown but still close, still connected. Together they were living proof that love does not follow one path. It creates its own. And long after the town forgot its old judgments, long after the whispers faded into memory, one truth remained unshaken. She was chosen, not in spite of who she was, but because of it.